And all to take a look at the economic policies now. We can turn to business news with Stephen Carroll. Stephen, I'm going to start in the United States, where Joe Biden's administration is starting the political wrangling over their economic rescue plan.
That's right. With the executive orders now signed, the heavy work gets underway on trying to get that plan with a price tag of $1.9 trillion approved. It includes more stimulus payments for Americans and increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, despite the Democrats controlling the House and the Senate, it's not a given that Joe Biden will be able to get that full package approved. Camille Nedelec reports.
The first 100 days of a president's mandate is when he or she goes for the big-ticket items. President Joe Biden is pushing for a $1.9 trillion package to help the economy. He wants more direct stimulus payments of $1,400 and to extend unemployment benefits. $130 billion will be to reopen schools, and minimum wage could more than double. The bill also includes money for a nationwide vaccine rollout.
The package wasn't designed with the number 1.9 trillion as a starting point. It was designed with the components that were necessary to give people the relief they needed.
To get the bill passed, Biden is hoping for bipartisan backing, as Democrats control Congress by a thin margin. But several conservatives are worried about the price tag, especially after having recently passed a package worth over $900 billion in December. This, as the Federal Reserve warned that underspending on support is far riskier to the American economy than overspending. But to get those votes, Biden may well have to compromise.
I think he'll get 1.4 or 1.5 trillion because he's going to make some effort at getting a couple Republican votes. Presidents usually get their first budget through Congress.
Although the Democratic Party could force the bill through the Senate, they can't do so quickly without Republican support. With jobless numbers again rising in December, the need for action is urgent.
Meanwhile, business groups in the United States have broadly welcomed the stimulus plan, but there are elements of which they're hesitating over. On the minimum wage, the chairman of the Business Roundtable Group, Doug McMillan, who's also the CEO of Walmart, said that a thoughtful plan was needed which considers geographic differences and small businesses, hinting that a federal hike to $15 an hour may be too far. While the CEO of the US Chamber of Commerce warned that hiking taxes or adding new regulations could throttle the economic recovery and, quote, tilt the scale against businesses which are helping that recovery.
So, Stephen, how are the markets reacting to all of this?
Well, there are hopes for economic stimulus in the United States, and the spillover effects that would have on the rest of the global economy is helping to boost investor sentiment. European shares starting the day up. We've got gains across London, Paris and Frankfurt. It's construction firms and industrial shares that are leading the gains there across Europe. We had gains too on most of the Asian markets in trading today as well. Japan's Nikkei up by 0.8%.
Meanwhile, here in France, Google has reached a deal with French media organisations to pay them for showing extracts of their work online.
The organisation that represents more than 300 daily and weekly newspapers in France says a deal's been done with the internet giant over what's called related or neighbouring rights for their content. Their members will now negotiate fees from Google for showing previews of their articles in search results. It'll also give the papers access to Google's new News Showcase programme. This deal comes after a long legal battle. After a complaint from French newspapers, the country's competition authority had ordered Google to negotiate this licensing deal.
Next to massive losses reported by the US airline United.
The carrier saw net losses of $1.9 billion for the last 3 months of 2020. That's compared to profits of over $500 million for the same period. In total, United Airlines lost more than $7 billion last year. The outlook for the coming year isn't much brighter. The company is expecting revenues to be up to 70% lower on the first 3 months of the year.
And finally, Stephen, the consumer goods giant Unilever is pushing ahead with efforts to ensure all workers receive a living wage.
Yeah, this is the company that owns things like Ben & Jerry's ice cream and Dove Cosmetics. They promised that by 2030, every worker that provides it with goods or services will earn a living wage. That includes 65,000 direct suppliers to the company around the world. Unilever is defining a living wage as enough money to cover basic needs, including food, housing, education, healthcare and transport. The firm will be checking all of its suppliers to ensure their compliance, and those that don't obey the rules risk losing their contracts. Oxfam among those welcoming the move, saying it's a step in the right direction.
Stephen Carroll with our business news. Thanks indeed for that.